Hello, my name is Virginia Yarborough, and today we're going to talk about hurricane preparedness. Some of the things we're going to talk about today are preparing your home for the hurricane, as well as what kind of supplies you're going to need to gather. So, in preparing your home, you're going to want to take a look at your yard. Make sure any yard furniture, trash cans, toys, things that can become flying objects need to be picked up, put in a shed, locked away so that the wind can't get to them. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure all your trees that are around your house have their tree limbs trimmed. This way, if they break, they don't fall on your house. You don't end up having holes in your roof. While we're talking about your roof, make sure you check your roof and check the shingles to make sure there's no loose shingles, make sure there's no pre-existing leaks. That way your house is nice and tight and you're safe in the hurricane. Make sure you also board up any of your windows or close your shutters on your windows. You don't want objects that have become flying objects in the wind to come crashing through your windows and hurt somebody. After you've prepared the outside of your home, you're going to want to gather your supplies. You can make a checklist for your supplies. That way you can check off the things that you have, the things that you need. That way you don't end up running out of something or missing something. The very first thing you want to gather is flashlights. Make sure you at least have one for every person and enough batteries for every person. You're going to want enough batteries to last you for potentially 2 weeks. Worst case scenario, I've seen the power go out for about 2 weeks. Best case, hopefully just for the day. If you're running out of batteries, the other thing you can use is candles. I prefer the ones in the glass jar. This way you don't end up running a fire risk from melting wax spilling all over the place. If you do decide to use candles, though, do not leave them unattended. You can bring them in the room where you're at, where everybody's gathered at, to wait out the storm, light them, play board games under the candlelight, that's fine. But if you leave the room, be sure to blow the candles out. Do not leave them lit when you go to bed. If you need more light than the candles are able to provide, you can also use hurricane lamps. These you can leave lit for several hours, especially if you have enough fuel. If you do decide to use hurricane lamps, be sure to have them up out of the way of children and pets. You don't want children or pets to knock them over, because then you will potentially have a fire. That's why we always want to have a fire extinguisher on hand just in case. The next thing you'll want to do is to go through your pantry. Collect all the non-perishable food items that you have and see if you can make meals out of them. You'll want to make at least enough meals for 1, potentially 2 weeks. Things like SpaghettiOs and raviolis and soup, crackers and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, things that don't necessarily need to be in the refrigerator. That's the kind of meals that you'll want to plan. As far as the refrigerator goes, set your refrigerator on the coldest setting. You'll also want to put anything into the freezer that you won't necessarily need. Like if you don't need 2 jugs of milk in your refrigerator for the entire week because we're eating the perishable food, the non-perishable food items, remember, then put all that stuff in the freezer. That way it'll stay colder for much longer and you won't have the risk of spoiling. The other thing you'll want to do is to collect lots and lots of water. Now, you could go to your local Walmart and gather all the bottled water off the shelves that you can find. The easier way to do that is to just collect water in jugs. Pitchers around the house, pots and pans, all those sort of things are really good at collecting the water. You can store it in your refrigerator so dust and pets don't get into it, but you'll have the water on hand. You can also collect water in your bathtub. You'll want enough water to at least, again, last you 2 weeks. If the power goes out, the town is not going to be able to provide you with water to be able to flush your toilet, for example. If you have no water, you can't flush your toilet, then you've got a problem, a really stinky problem. So, if you have your water filled up in your bathtub, you can scoop the water from the bathtub and fill the back of your tank on your toilet. That way you can flush the toilet. If your power's out for more than 1 or 2 weeks, or for even more than a day, you're going to want a generator. That way you can plug your refrigerator in, keep things cold. You can plug your stove in so you can cook meals. But if you don't have a generator, another option you have is getting a portable camping stove. This is just cardboard and paraffin wax rolled up inside a can. You set this thing on fire. You put it in here, and you can put a pot on top with your SpaghettiOs or your pork and beans and cook meals that way. If you do decide to do these, make sure you have lots of ventilation. Do them outside if you can. If you can't, open a window so that you're able to ventilate your house. In conclusion, make sure you do your homework. Be prepared for the kinds of scenarios that your area ends up encountering. If it's going to flood, go ahead and get out of Dodge. Evacuate. If it's not going to flood and you're just expecting some wind and rain, gather your supplies, prepare your yard, make sure everything's picked up, and make sure to prepare for 2 weeks of the power being out. It may not go out for 2 weeks. It's best to be prepared.